Hey there, welcome back for another episode of One on One Podcasting, or So Does It Matter, the podcast. Every week we try to talk with somebody who I think is making a difference in California politics and policy. I'm very excited this week that we have as our guest Matt Klink. Matt is the president of Klink Campaigns out of Los Angeles. And Matt has forgotten more about how the politics of Los Angeles work than I have ever known. So it's really good to get subject matter experts on the horn. Hi, Matt.
Hello, John. Good to see you.
It's great to see you. So, as all of our watchers know and subscribers know, and Matt is a watcher and a subscriber, so he knows, we always start off these interviews by going to our friend ChatGPT, and I just type in, hey, for my podcast, I'm going to be interviewing Matt Klink of Klink Campaigns. Please give me an appropriate introduction. And I do this literally right before we start, and I haven't read it. So I'm going to read it now, and we'll see what ChatGPT has to say about Matt. Matt, I hope that you've been good to the internet gods. So here we go. I'll put on my little radio voice. My guest today is someone who has spent decades in the trenches of California politics with deep expertise in Los Angeles. He understands how power really operates in the city. Matt Klink is the founder of Klink Campaigns and a longtime political strategist who has advised candidates, ballot measure efforts, and public affairs campaigns across the state, and in fact, across the country. When it comes to the intersection of media, messaging, and municipal politics in Los Angeles, he brings a practitioner's perspective, not theory, not punditry, but real-world experience. Matt also writes on Substack. He's a great writer on Substack. I added that, where he covers a wide range of topics, including Los Angeles politics, national trends, media narratives shaping the public debate, and other assorted things. I added that. His commentary has appeared in various newspapers and publications, and he's known for offering analysis that cuts through the spin, although he's good at spin. I added that. If you want to understand where LA politics is heading and why he's someone worth listening to, Matt, welcome to So Does It Matter.
Thank you, John. It's great to be here again.
It seems to me that you've actually is OpenAI a client of yours? Because that was an awfully generous introduction.
No kidding, right? I guess I must have praised it when I use it sometimes for the graphics in my Substack.
There you go. And I will take a moment to maybe when I reinforce it at the end of the podcast, it'll mean more after you hear from Matt. But Matt does write a great Substack. And sure, some of what he writes does contain a political analysis. He had a piece on LA politics just a couple weeks ago. But he writes about all kinds of stuff, and I find it all interesting. And if you like my use of cartoons and what I do, Matt's also good at that and getting better at it as he goes along. And so you'll enjoy that. You can find him linked below if you're watching this on Substack, and in the notes on YouTube if you're watching it there. I'll put a link directly to Matt's Substack page. So with that, before we dive right into this interview, and you're used to this too, I want to ask you to help me, and you'll be helping Matt too. I would like you to consider sharing this. If you're enjoying what you're getting here, first of all, if you're watching it on Substack, right below there's a heart button. That's the I love this. We want you to love this. And then there's a restack button where you could just hit restack. And if you want, you could say, I enjoy this. I think you will too. And click that. Obviously, if you're over on YouTube, you can hit subscribe, and then you'll be notified every time we do one of these, and you hit like, and it helps the algorithm and more people see it. So just be helpful in that way, and I'll be most appreciative. And so will Matt. And with that, we're going to talk about Los Angeles and the politics going on. I'm going to start really quick by just telling you from an outsider's perspective, Los Angeles, the city of, seems really jacked up, Matt, like Clusterfuckistan jacked up. And I would only say that at some level, the best way to judge something is by outcomes. You are going to probably share with us a little bit about the process that creates the outcomes. But I see a city that has fires that it can't recover from, fires that maybe were preventable. I see a city that has one of its main industries, Hollywood, fleeing, despite hundreds of millions of dollars of tax subsidies coming out of Sacramento. They're choosing to do their filming elsewhere, and studios are closing, or where they film is closing. I see a city that, there was a headline in the paper today saying that it takes like well over a year to get a traffic signal updated. I know from other things I've read that the city has done no paving to speak of for like an entire year. I seem to recall the mayor said, oh, well, we did 60 miles, which sounds interesting until you realize that there's like tens of thousands of miles within the city of paving that needs to be done. And we can maybe talk about why that's not happening. But we could talk about the homelessness problem. We could talk about the fraud problems. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Is it a city that's ready for the world to descend for the World Cup, for the Olympics? All this and more. Matt, I'm going to turn it over to you now so that you can kind of give us LA City Politics 101.
Thank you for that stellar lead in. So, yeah, I mean, look, the grim reality of Los Angeles is that it's the second largest city, or the largest city in California, the second largest city in the United States. It's got problems that are endemic to every big city, and it has some more just because of the location and the weather. Homelessness being case in point. We have a system whereby, believe it or not, well, the mayor is very high profile. The mayor really doesn't have a lot of power. The city was designed way back when by the founding fathers of Los Angeles, so to fight against the corruption that was in existence in many big cities on the East Coast. So you have a very strong Los Angeles City Council, 15 little fiefdoms, and the mayor exerts some general oversight. And that has become largely problematic. It becomes very difficult to get anything done. You have parts of the city, and in this article that I wrote recently about Los Angeles being an extreme left sociological experiment, you have, at least right now, 4 members who are Democratic Socialists of America candidates, and everything that goes with them, meaning don't enforce the homeless laws, defund the police department, vote against police department budgets, but fund all of the progressive stuff that is like the Christmas tree for the left. And the bottom,
As we always talk about these democratic socialists, their actual philosophy is collectivism. And so
correct.
because of that, they do not believe in individual liberty tied to individual responsibility. These are the people that say that if somebody breaks into a car because they need money for food, well, those are I don't know, they're the hunger challenged. And we shouldn't prosecute them because we are responsible for them needing to break into a car to eat.
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
that's like a thing.
absolutely. And to
We
show the lunacy of that, Nithya Raman, and they used it against her in her last city council race. She blamed Toyota for manufacturing catalytic converters that people steal cars for. It's not the people who steal the car's fault. It's the car company's fault for including catalytic converters. This is the fuzzy logic that the extreme left says, we should be paying, the city of Los Angeles should pay private attorneys to help people illegally stay in apartments. I mean,
All right.
it's
Yeah, there you go. So we've
common.
got a kind of a weak mayor system. You have a citywide elected mayor, and then why don't you tell people? I mean, most of my watchers are not from LA, and people in LA might not even know how many people are on the city council.
Yeah, so we have 15 council districts. Number hasn't changed for a while. The city council is currently going through charter reform, which is like the equivalent of a constitutional convention. And they're talking about increasing the number of council members because the city has grown so much. Now, mind you, they have no desire to decrease the salary or the staffing for the city council
Right, of
because the
course.
districts should be smaller. They want to increase the number at the existing level of pay.
Right, of course.
That, because the work is so valuable that they do. And these are, I mean, they make a really good amount of money. They get a car allowance, they get other allowances that push their perks well into the $200,000 range. And plus that, they get a pretty cush retirement out of this.
Yeah, well, they can use New York City as the model. I think their city council has over 40 members on it, as I recall, and that's worked out really well for them over there, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Or Chicago with all of the aldermen. It functions like a mini legislature. All it would do is just give special interests that already control Los Angeles more power. And by special interests, I mean not just look, labor in and of itself is not inherently bad. However, the public sector unions and the most radical of the unions, like the healthcare workers and SEIU, the ones that are the real social, it just gives them more opportunity to elect more of their people to fight against people that work for a living and that own property in the city of Los Angeles.
I think because we're going to be talking about those special interests, but I think the best way to frame it is to have you maybe there's an election coming up in April, And so I think maybe if we talk about that election, it's going to lead us into a conversation out of necessity about these special interests that we're talking about. But maybe frame it for what's on the ballot in April in Los Angeles, and then
Yeah.
let's talk about what those things look like.
Just be real quick. It's June, not April. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, no,
I'm
no.
trying to cut the madness off too quickly. You have
I
to
was
go
gonna
all the way.
say,
So it's consolidated with the June primary,
yes,
or top
correct.
two runoff,
Yep.
whatever that is. All
So
right.
the Mayor Bass is on the election. As your listeners may recall, she won 4 years ago. She beat Rick Caruso, who spent roughly $107 million. Mayor Bass spent about $10 million, and Mayor Bass beat him by 10 points. I think that contributed to a lot of the reason why he didn't challenge her again this time, even though the circumstances are radically different. I mean, the most obvious reason is the Palisades fires. The city, I mean, uh, it's doubtful that the fires could have been prevented, but they shouldn't have been as bad as they were and spread so quickly. And that's the part that I think really frustrates a lot of people. You had, the fire.
Combined with with a lack of candor, right? Probably advised by lawyers and political consultants. You don't want to take the blame, and you don't want the city to get sued, et cetera.
Well, what would they used to say about Richard Nixon? The cover up was worse than the crime.
Right.
And this is an example. I mean, one, Mayor Bass was in Ghana attending the swearing in of the new president in Ghana, even though she knew that the winds were going to kick up and it was a fire hazard. She came back, and as you may recall, that made for television moment when she gets off the airplane and the camera gets shoved in her face and she just stands there frozen. I don't blame the mayor for that. I wanted, as a staffer at one point, where's the staffer going? Mayor, your car's out front. Let's go now. And physically
Right.
grabbing her. I mean, she looked like a
Right.
deer in the
Or Mayor, we're gonna go ahead and take you off the at a private exit so that you don't have to, so that you, when you do talk to the media, you're prepared
paired.
to deal with their questions. The timing, it's no doubt the case that, she's a very close ally of Joe Biden, and this was very close to the end of his term. And we know that President Ottopen wasn't in charge, but I'm sure some of her friends just kind of said, "Hey, look, anybody out there, our friends, there's only few opportunities left to travel the world on the U.S.
Yeah,
taxpayer dime.
the US
Come on and
government.
let's do it."
Exactly.
So she did it.
Yep.
So
Well, so I mean, objectively, on that event alone, you would think that the mayor's vulnerable. But then the mayor's popularity rebounds because she comes out in city of Los Angeles, 13% registered Republican voters in the city. That's 13%.
yeah, so Republicans are less of a political party and more of kind of a little interest group.
Small interest group. Yeah, absolutely. And they're dispersed throughout the entire city.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. There's not, out of 15 city council members, the number of Republicans is exactly zero. Oh, there's one.
I think to John Lee, he may be registered as an independent now, but I think that he would be the closest thing that we would consider to being a Republican.
And he probably dare not say anything nice about Donald Trump, or he's going to get rolled out of his district.
Yeah, exactly. No, he won't say it. No. And so the bottom line is Karen Bass goes out and she starts protesting, the ICE coming into the city. I mean, she did that ludicrous press conference where she talked about, the kids camp in MacArthur Park. Have you ever been to MacArthur Park? It's where homeless people and drug addicts go to score drugs. There are no kids there. I mean, and the only reason I know that, not because I'm a big MacArthur Park guy,
Because
it's
you were doing drugs as a kid in MacArthur Park?
no, it's across the street from Langers.
Oh, there you go. All
I
right.
like to get their number 19. But I mean, it's laughable that she says, "Oh, these poor kids were scared by ICE." It's like anybody who knows Los Angeles realizes the lunacy of that. But what it did is it showed her fighting for something, in this case, fighting against Donald Trump, and fighting for the undocumented community in Los Angeles. And her popularity went up. And believe
Yeah,
it or
well,
not,
yeah, we've seen this play out statewide with Prop 52. You just run against Trump, and then you literally don't have to talk about the substance of any issues whatsoever. By the way, for my statewide and national, and actually we have some international viewers, Langer's is one of the best Jewish delicatessens in Los Angeles, and the number 19 is a massive pastrami sandwich with the Swiss cheese and the Russian dressing and the creamy coleslaw, double baked rye. It's good stuff. All right, we'll move on, but I just wanted to since I'm from LA, on the West Side originally.
It is a beautiful sandwich.
Yeah.
Yep. So, needless to say, the filing is getting close to the deadline, and you have to file papers and turn in signatures and all this good stuff.
Like any other office.
Like any office, exactly. Well, Rick Caruso is doing this dance. Will he run for governor? Will he run for mayor? Meanwhile, Austin Butner, who is the former, former hedge fund guy, former superintendent of the Los Angeles Unified School District, he announces he's going to run.
And I think for like a nanosecond, he was the publisher for the LA Times. I don't think for very long, but he had that too.
Yep. So he announces he's going to run, and then he has just a horrible family tragedy. One of his daughter passed, so he suspends his campaign. And the day before filing closes, he says, "I'm not going to run." And Caruso says he's not going to run. Lo and behold, out of nowhere, just to show you that politics makes her some strange bedfellows here, Nithya Raman, who was endorsed by Mayor Karen Bass 2 years prior in her reelection, Nithya Raman throws her hat into the ring and says she's running for mayor. So, you know, it's kind of laughable because, she's in a distant second place. In fact, if you look at recent polling data, she's she's fighting out second place with a guy named Spencer Pratt, who is a social media guy that had his home burned down in the Palisades. And he is the epitome of a single issue candidate.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot because when I was thinking about Caruso and him tying up the race for a while, and there's no way of knowing had he not done that, maybe Buettner would have been so accelerated in his candidacy and his campaign that even with the loss of his daughter, he would have stayed in. Or maybe if Caruso wasn't occupying that bandwidth, other candidates would have looked. At some level, it feels like Caruso, clearly without intent, did a pretty big solid for Karen Bass. But the other thing, when you bring up Spencer Pratt, and it goes with Caruso as well, is the people that are affected by that fire are a very small fraction of Los Angeles, probably with a disproportionate amount of that 10% of Republicans in it. And I know that I've talked to people in Los Angeles, a lot of people in Los Angeles, and they feel very disconnected to what's going on in the Palisades or in Altadena on the other side of the city because it did not directly impact them. And I don't think that Caruso ever did or even tried, and I don't know that Pratt will ever try, to figure out how to run a candidacy that is not entirely focused on one incident that was devastating, but yet is very removed for 90% of the electorate. As a matter of fact, I suspect that Karen Bass would be in a much different position today had that fire been in South Central Los Angeles.
Oh my gosh, it would have completely changed the dynamics of
Her lack of competency would have shown itself to her core constituency group instead of to people who probably mostly voted for Rick Caruso in the previous election anyway.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that, there are more voters in South Los Angeles and East Los Angeles than there are in West Los Angeles and the San Fernando Valley.
Yeah.
And
So, so you're handicapping is you think that Karen Bass is almost on easy street.
yeah, she may be forced into a runoff just because there are multiple candidates in the race. Once she comes out on top in June, she won't have to worry about November. And for Nithya Raman, look, I think her candidacy is a fool's errand just because one, her policies would be even Karen
But she has
Bass.
a free ride, right? She's not giving up her council seat to run.
You took it exactly where I was going to go. Yeah, she's not running. She was just reelected. She cannot, she has a safe seat, so she can run and with no pitfalls other than really pissing off the mayor when the mayor wins again.
Yeah, we figured out, by the way, for everybody watching, that Matt is actually a constituent of hers. So, Matt, I think that if she happens to win for mayor, we're going to have to draft you to run for city council. I'm sure you would go over well with that district.
Yeah, like a 10,
I want to talk about the impact that Raman's going to have in other council races, but I think before we do that, I think we need to frame one of the reasons why the mayor is on Easy Street is because of the special interests that kind of dominate city politics. And could you talk about that and why maybe to everybody else objectively, Karen Bass is not doing a great job, but to a very small number of very well-heeled interest groups, she's doing a great job. So Could you explain that to everybody?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we have contribution limits in the city of Los Angeles that are pretty restrictive. That being said, several of these interest groups that you're talking about, and they're primarily the city workers unions, the police union, the fire union, as well as some of the other more progressive unions out there, the private sector unions, SCIU, well, I guess public sector too, SCIU and HERE, but the hotel workers and others, they pour hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars into these races. And it's the hard part is for the government workers, they literally have an advocate sitting at both sides of the table, and they press the council who has to approve budgets and deals. They press the council to pass, salary and salary benefits raises that the city knowingly can't afford. And then the council then has to come back and say, we're short, we need more money.
We see this all the time, right? We see it with, well, as you've heard me say before, I feel like the public employee unions have a four items on their checklist, and that's all they have on their checklist. Number one is how do we get paid more? Number two is how do we increase our benefits? So it's more about compensation. Number three is how do we get more positions to make our union bigger, like more actual headcount.
Yep.
Well, they will sacrifice that before they will sacrifice the raises for the current members. And then last but not least, it's what policies can we put in place to make us less accountable, to make our jobs easier, and those sorts of things. And it's rinse, wash, and repeat. And so, you know, you see that, you could see what happens here. And then the other rule, by the way, is when the economy is good, the unions come to the table and say, share the wealth. Tax revenues are up. There's more money. Give us raises. And then when the economy is a little bit more challenged, like right now, our members can't afford. Inflation's going up. We need more money. And so the model is always give us more, no matter what's happening.
No matter what.
More.
Yeah. And it used to be, John, the saying is that you make less in salary, but you make up for it because you have an old school pension where you can retire and get, really, really, keep your salary or most of it and full healthcare benefits. Now the public sector makes more than the private sector in some cases. And then they retire with these massive benefits. So no,
And of course, they're always very strategic about when they time their contracts, right?
yep. Well, yeah, there's no secret that a lot of the hotel union contracts are up the month before the Summer Olympics come in 2028.
Gee,
And
go
yet,
figure. We're just at a time when not because they own both sides of the bargaining table. I'm not sure that there would be much of a fight anyway, but certainly there's not going to be an appetite to have headlines and unions making noises about taking actions. They're just going to say, here's more money.
yeah, and earlier you raised the point about is LA ready or capable of dealing with big events like the World Cup in 26, the Super Bowl in 27, and the Olympics in 28? Look, ultimately the answer is yes. In a large part because for these events, the private sector gets involved and there's billions and billions of dollars that flows into the city because of this. And more than anything, the city just needs to get out of the way. They need to let these events happen, provide some security, make sure the streets flow, which if you were here in LA in 84, which I'm sure you were, LA moved great because a lot of people that lived in LA left. Yeah.
That was my first real job of any sort. I signed up to work in the Olympics, and they gave me this. For some reason, they chose as colors for those Olympic games fluorescent green and pink. And so I
Yes.
had a little outfit, and I got to drive a golf cart around the UCLA campus delivering mail to
Nice.
all of the different places. So, but
Trying
hey,
to
so let's
trying to
talk.
picture you in fluorescent green and pinks.
Yeah, let's somewhere I still have that old ID around. I'll have to find it. I'll share it with you, but not anyone else. But let's talk about the city council races. So, how many seats are up and what do those look like? And then after that, we're going to talk about what else is on the ballot for Los
Beautiful.
Angeles.
All right. Yeah. Look, the city council. So all the odd seats are up. So 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, you know, 11, 13, and 15. So the most important races initially are Council District 1 and Council District 13. And, why are these important? Well, for a couple of reasons. The first is these are two Democratic Socialists of America candidates who won election 4 years ago. they want the DSA folks want these incumbents reelected. It's important for them, and they want them reelected in the primary. Council District 1 is Eunices Hernandez. She votes against the police contracts. She does these crazy votes on all these tenants' rights issues and, anti-housing issues. And yet they're for more housing, just so long as it's the right kind of housing.
Well, what they really want is government-owned housing. That's really what they
Correct.
want.
Yeah, but they realized the experiment with that was an abject failure when they tried it in the 70s. So
I'm not sure they realize it, but we realize it.
So Council District 1 and Council District 13 is Hugo Soto Martinez, represents Hollywood. And look, if the DSA candidates can win in the primary, what the DSA brings to the table is people power. So they import people from Portland, Oregon, from Seattle, from New York, from any place where.
And here's where we see the benefit of Raman's candidacy, because they will come down to elect the new Mamdani for Los Angeles.
Yes.
But she's smart enough to make sure that their ground game efforts in a very large city are focused in the council districts that matter.
Correct. So if these two in council districts 1 and 13, if they get 50%, they don't have to run again in November. And all of those bodies that are going to help them, they'll swing over. And there is Council District 9, which is the Curran Price seat. Curran Price is term limited, so he can't run for re-election. There's a Democratic
Talk about somebody leaving office on fire. That would be the guy.
Yeah, pretty much. So, but that's a seat that they have, and that's a seat, by the way, that has traditionally elected African-American decision makers or leaders, but it's a seat that is largely Latino by voting age population. So this is the election that seat flips from a black seat to a Latino seat. And the question is whether it's a Democratic Socialist candidate or a left of center Democratic candidate. And then in the 11th Council District, arguably the most effective council member is Tracy Park. She replaced a guy by the name of Mike Bonin, who he wasn't a DSA candidate, but he was a wacky liberal candidate who wouldn't clean out the homeless, and there were all these assaults in the 11th District. So Tracy Park has not only been battling,
and by the way, she represents the Palisades, that whole area, and then all the way down to my mom and dad live in Playa Vista, and she's their representative. And my parents are very reasonable people, and my mom especially is a big fan of the councilwoman, thinks she does a very, very good job with her videos and being responsive. And she may or may not have used the word normal, because I'm not sure she realizes what it would be like to have an abnormal council member, but she really likes Park.
Look, you want to talk about a candidate that, she came in and she pledged to fight the homeless issues and fight for more police presence in the district. That is a humongous undertaking given the weird constituency that Tracy Park represents. You layer on top of that the Palisades fire. She has been the most effective council member. So
they're challenging her, and does she have a serious challenger?
There is a Democratic Socialist challenger in that district, and it's almost two districts because the Venice area is kooky. So near your parents in the, but then there's the Palisades area. The challenge though is, where are those voters?
Yeah, exactly. Many of them have moved, and are they, and all of them basically, so it's tough. So,
but all those, the bottom line.
So we got to kind of finish up on are there any other council seats that are worth talking about in this?
No, right. I think they're all
right. So let's, we know the optimal bandwidth for our poor watchers here is about 40 minutes. And so I want to make sure that we leave enough time to talk about what else is on the ballot.
Yeah. So
potentially for June and November in Los Angeles.
Sure. So June, let's focus on June, at least, because that's the horror that's in front of us as opposed to the attraction in November. Look, there is the fire department has put on a sales tax to fund the fire department. And look, I don't fault the fire department for needing more money. Clearly they do, as evidenced by Palisades. What I do fault is the Los Angeles City Council basically saying everything that we're doing is so important, we're going to raise taxes to fund arguably one of the top two most important government services that local government can fund, police and fire.
Yeah, this is their playbook all along, right? They always do this. They basically say to themselves, and by the way, the unions are very much participants in this. Let's go ahead and fund the things that we want to do and underfund the basic core kind of responsibilities of local government because the people, if asked, do you want more money for fire? Do you want more money for police? Are going to say yes. If they ask them, hey, do you want the city to be providing, I don't know, extensive legal services for people who knowingly came into the country illegally, that's a bit tougher thing to get people to tax themselves to do. So that it's always this way. And then the unions all get along. So the firefighters, correct me if I'm wrong, they're the ones who have put this on the ballot.
Yes.
They had the option of putting a measure on the ballot that would force the city to prioritize firefighter funding out of existing funds. But if you want to get along with everyone in the city, it's, oh, no, let's have new taxes.
Yeah. No, exactly. Rather than prioritize, let's just dig deeper into everyone's pockets. And again, the fire department does need more money. Grant you. I mean, to be honest, you know what the fire department is more than anything? They're a homelessness way station. They spend them and the police. That's how they spend a significant portion of their
Yeah.
time. And by the way, how many?
God bless Rick Caruso, by the way. I know a lot about this from his ongoing efforts to expose this part of what Los Angeles city government does. He's talked about it a lot with fire and police especially.
Yeah. The homeless industrial complex is you have people now making billions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars on the homeless issue. And we have a sales tax that was approved last cycle that is a forever tax that never goes away, which is an admission by the people in the county of Los Angeles that they never want this issue to go away. It's a perpetual revenue source, which means that the problem's never going to get resolved. So there's
Right,
that.
so all that to say, there's a tax on the ballot in June
That's
with
one.
monies to be dedicated to the fire
To the
department.
fire department. There's also going to be, and you'll love this one. Sometimes government is so funny. There is a tax on unregistered cannabis operators. So mind you, these are people that own cannabis shops that are out of compliance with the law because they haven't registered to
Wouldn't that be
sell.
like having a tax on bank robbers?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you can't be a bank robber. It's not legal, but you know what?
But
We're
if
gonna
you're
give you
going to
some
get the money
amnesty if you
you
want it.
want, I care.
You always owe 20% of anything you rob to the city of Los Angeles.
Yes. Yeah. Nothing epitomizes city of LA government is that we know it's illegal, but we want our share of it nonetheless. So that's on the ballot. And then there is it's a hotel tax that they call it a transit occupancy tax. And for the city, that's a free tax for them because when was the last time you stayed in a hotel in your own city? Right?
Yeah, as we like to say, don't tax me, tax the guy behind the tree. Or in this
Exactly.
case, tax the guy that's coming in from out of town. The
Yep.
problem, of course, and I've had this conversation with many local elected officials that are like, a TOT tax, that's not a big deal. And I go, well, guess what happens when everybody does it? Then you do pay the tax because when you go out of town, wherever you're heading, they've raised your tax and everyone's doing it. And it's a pretty, nefarious way. So those are on the ballot. Anything else you think is going to show up for June? I
There are,
recognize they're still at the final stages of
yeah.
negotiating.
There are a couple of other ones I think they're going to slip until November. But I will say that, one thing that is going to be on the ballot, the county has put a half-cent sales tax measure on the ballot to fund cuts in healthcare spending because the federal government cut funds. And they profile encouraged by the county. If you have a general tax requires 50%, which means the money goes to the general fund. A specific tax means so you designate the money requires a 2/3 vote. Well, the county knows they can't get 2/3. So they have a general tax, but they assure us, they promise that money is going to go for healthcare.
It's too bad people can't learn from what happens in other parts of the state because this happened in Santa Clara County last November, where Mayor Mahan and a bunch of other supposedly more moderate people were very hesitant about supporting it and then decided to support it because of these assurances. And sure enough, the taxes passed and, there was supposed to be money going to the DAs and other things like that. No, we're not going to do that. As you know, we're not bound, we supervisors, and our union overlords have other ideas for that money. So it's a rinse, wash, repeat. It just happens over and over again. And then I also think that it's worth mentioning because I want to make sure we don't wrongly tag people. Supervisor Catherine Barger, who's the one Republican on the
Correct. He
LA
was the
County Board
one
of Supervisors. She was a no vote on that.
the one no vote. It was a 4-1 vote, and every city in her supervisorial district voiced opposition to the tax. So I mean, there will be a strong no campaign. But
See what
again,
happens.
yeah, definitely.
All right. Do you want to make a kind of wrap up on LA city politics before we kind of end this podcast?
No, other than, look,
Maybe something optimistic, some
yeah,
reason for
no,
hope?
I will say this, there is reason to hope because the World Cup, the Super Bowl, and the Olympics are gonna be awesome, not because of government, in spite of government, and I encourage everyone, if you love sports, LA is gonna be the place for the next 3 years.
Well, and of course, we're all looking forward to the upcoming season where the world champion Los Angeles Dodgers can go
Yes.
for a three-peat.
You
So
know it.
Matt, thank you so much for being generous with your time. We really appreciate it. Again, I want to encourage people to sign up for Matt's Substack. The link will be below. Or if you're on Substack, just type in Matt Klink, Klink, and you will find him there. And then again, you can help me, you can help Matt, you can help our cause by sharing this and spreading the word about these kinds of features that we have on SoDoesItMatter.com.
Thank you.